Hayao Miyazaki's Howl's Moving Castle follows the story of Sophie, a teenager who is a maligner working at the hat shop of her late father in a mundane town. However, her life takes an interesting turn when she is transformed into an elderly woman and falls in love with the wizard Howl. The film starts with Sophie making a hat in her late father's shop. While her younger sisters enjoy their life, Sophie keeps working till late. After working for quite a long time, she sets out on a bus to go meet her sister Letty at the bakery. On her way, she encounters two army men trying to flirt with her. All of a sudden, she's saved by a wizard named Howl, who volunteers to escort her, but on their way, they are chased by obnoxious demons. Holding Sophie in his arms, Howl flies in the air seamlessly and floats down the balcony, leaving her in a safe place. Letty, who is busy working at the bakery, learns about Sophie's unbelievable arrival and inquires about it. It turns out that there is a rumor about Howl eating up beautiful girls, and Letty is thankful that he spared Sophie. While bidding farewell to Sophie, Letty asks her to start living her life and leave the old shop, but Sophie thinks she's obliged to work there as the shop meant a lot to her father. Upon reaching home, the Witch of the Waste barges into Sophie's home, belittling her and her shop. Unaware that she is the Witch of the Waste, Sophie asks her to leave. So, the witch casts a spell on Sophie, transforming her into a 90-year-old woman and asking her to pay Howl her regards. Sophie starts panicking after seeing herself in the mirror and keeps assuring herself that she will be fine. The next morning, her mother arrives at the shop and is surprised to know that Sophie hasn't come to work. She goes to Sophie's room to look for her, but Sophie refuses to come out of her room, lying that she is suffering from an extreme cold. Sophie then decides to seek help in breaking the curse. So, she packs her stuff and heads out to the countryside on a cadge. Despite the villagers' warnings, Sophie sets out for the folding valley that is known for wizards and witches. There, she comes across a scarecrow, whom she calls Turnip Head. But the scarecrow turns out to be alive and starts following Sophie, and lends her a cane so she can walk properly. Seeing that the scarecrow is trying to help her, Sophie asks him to look for a shelter where she can spend the night. Later on, as it starts to get dark, the scarecrow brings with itself the Howl's Moving Castle. Sophie quickly enters the castle and sits by the fire to warm herself up. As she rests, the fire surprisingly starts talking to her and tells her that she is under a spell that will be very hard to break. Sophie thinks it's Howl, but it's a fire demon named Calcifer, who in some way is binded with Howl. He offers Sophie a deal that if she breaks the chain that is linking him with Howl, he can break her curse in a flash. Sophie refuses the bargain as she doesn't trust Calcifer, who reveals that he's actually the secret power to Howl's castle that helps it move. The next morning, someone knocks at the castle's door. Howl's young apprentice, Markl, is confused to see an old woman in the castle. Anyhow, he goes to answer the door, and it turns out that Sophie's nation is caught up in a war with a neighboring kingdom as the prince has gone missing. Howl and the other wizard's presence is requested by the king. Sophie discovers that it is a magic house that travels to 4 different places as she changes the door switch. She then proceeds to make breakfast, after which Markl tells her how Calcifer only obeys Howl, so she won't be able to cook breakfast. But despite Calcifer's reluctance, Sophie successfully cooks breakfast by threatening Calcifer to spill the beans about their bargain, if he does not cooperate. Suddenly, Howl enters the castle, and Markl promptly reports to him about the letters from the king inviting him to the war. Howl meets Sophie, who introduces herself as Grandma Sophie, and says that she hired herself as the cleaning lady of the castle after seeing its filthy condition. Markl, Howl, and Sophie sit together to have breakfast, and Howl makes sure to feed Sophie generously. Suddenly, he asks Sophie about what she is carrying in her pocket, and it turns out that Sophie is unaware of a piece of paper that she has had for a while. It burns to ashes as soon as Howl touches it, leaving a scorch mark with a message for Howl from the Witch of the Waste. Although the scorch mark vanishes, the spell on Sophie remains intact. Later, Sophie goes on a rampage while cleaning the castle, tormenting Calcifer and making the castle crystal clear. She then goes to the 2nd floor and is suffocated by the mess everywhere. When she opens the window for ventilation, she's thrilled to see the castle moving. So, Sophie appreciates Calcifer and his efforts. After a while, she finds the turnip head stuck upside down in the castle and helps him. Fulfilling Howl's order, Calcifer stops the castle near a lake where Sophie and Markl spend some time after doing laundry. Meanwhile, Howl is seen fighting in the war using his wizard flying capabilities and is attacked by hack wizards masquerading as monsters. Soon, he returns home all tired and transforms back into his human form. Before going for a bath, he checks up on Sophie. Strangely, Howl sees Sophie and her younger self while she's asleep. The next morning, Sophie takes Markl along to fetch some items for breakfast. While shopping, they discover a battleship under fire. In the crowd, Sophie is stunned to see the Witch of the Wast's henchmen, and so she quickly hides. All of a sudden, the battleship explodes after a bomb drops on it from an enemy's spaceship. Sophie rushes back to the castle only to find Howl getting mad at her for ruining his bathroom shelf, due to which he ended up coloring his hair orange. Howl fumes with anger as he takes his appearance rather too seriously and believes that the orange hair will make him look ugly. Howl gets all depressed and starts calling the spirits of darkness. Sophie tries to calm him down, but seeing his tantrums, she leaves the castle furiously. Markl brings Sophie back to the house, asking her to save Howl from oozing the green fluid from his body. So, Sophie and Markl help him take a shower. While Sophie is taking care of Howl, he tells her that he tried pursuing the Witch of the Waste once when she was beautiful and seemed interesting. Ever since then, the witch has been after Howl to hunt him down. He further tells Sophie that he's obliged to report to the king and participate in the war since he's taken an oath in the Sorcery Academy. Sophie asks Howl to be a brave man and advises him to express his refusal to the king that he won't participate in the war. Howl then gets the idea to send Sophie to the king as his mother to tell him that Howl is utterly useless to fight in the war. Before sending her off, he gives her a charmed ring that assures her a safe return. After a long walk, Sophie finally enters Kingsbury, where she is followed by a dog. She thinks it's Howl disguised as a dog to look after her. Sophie then notices the Witch of the Waste entering the king's castle as well and asks her to break the spell, but the witch straight away refuses to help as she claims to be unaware of how to break it. After much difficulty and lack of strength, both the ladies manage to climb the stairs. Solomon, the king's head sorceress, punishes the witch by taking all her powers and restoring her to her real age. Meanwhile, Sophie meets Solomon, who tells her that she sent her dog, Heen, to escort her inside the castle. Moreover, when Sophie tells Solomon that Howl won't be able to fight for the king, Solomon warns Sophie that if he does so, he will meet the same fate as that of the witch and will be stripped of all his powers. Just then, Sophie is shocked to see the Witch of the Waste reverted into a weak old woman. Sophie loses her cool and starts berating Solomon over her awful tactics. Solomon realizes that Sophie is not Howl's mother, but her lover. All of a sudden, Howl arrives to rescue Sophie disguised as the king, but his cover fails when the real king enters the hall to acquaint Solomon with his plans for the war. Solomon refuses to let them go and uses her powers to trap Howl by transforming him into a monster. But Sophie keeps him reminded that it is a trap, and finally the two of them escape the castle along with the former Witch of the Waste and Solomon's dog Heen. On their way home, they're chased by Solomon's henchmen, so Howl asks Sophie to travel to the castle by spiritually connecting to Calcifer, who will guide her the way. Meanwhile, Solomon tracks Howl and Sophie using Sophie's hat that she forgot in the castle. On the other hand, soldiers from each kingdom break into the homes of both Jenkins and Pendragon that Howl uses as aliases in those kingdoms. But the soldiers only find an empty courtyard and warehouse. Finally, Sophie crashes into the Howl's moving castle and is elated to reunite with Markl. At night, Howl transforms into the form of a bird-like creature, leaving his feathers along the way. Sophie is shocked to see them and goes to his room to check on him, only to discover Howl in absolute misery due to being under a spell. The next morning, while arguing with Calcifer, Sophie realizes that Howl's life is bound to Calcifer's, and that Howl has been transforming into a bird-like creature to hinder both sides of the war. Sophie then takes care of the castle and leads the family properly, which now includes Markl, the former Witch of the Waste, Heen, and Turniphead. Howl then declares that they have to move to get away from Solomon, who has found a way to track them down. Taking the entire family together, Howl magically links the castle to Sophie's home and also adds a few changes to it for their growing family. Sophie is surprised to see that she has returned to her town. Howl then magically changes the house's destination and takes Sophie for a stroll in a dreamy garden. In the garden, he shows Sophie a small cottage that used to be his secret hideaway when he was a child. Sophie is scared and requests Howl to be honest with her even if he is a monster and tell her why he brought her there. Howl explains that he wants his growing family to live peacefully in comfort, which is why he has brought them there. Just then, Howl notices the enemy's battleship passing over them. He scans into it and discovers that bombs are being manufactured inside. He uses his powers to tinker with the ship, alerting Solomon's henchmen. So, Howl quickly transforms into the bird-like creature and drops Sophie into the house safely to protect her from the enemies. At night, before going to bed, Sophie shares a heart-to-heart conversation with the former Witch of the Waste about love. However, their conversation is interrupted by an air raid siren. The next day, Sophie's mother pays her a visit and is shocked to see how Sophie has aged. It turns out that her mother keeps changing husbands and enjoys her life leaving behind Sophie to work. After she leaves, the former witch realizes that Sophie's mother left a bag in the house. She quickly opens it up only to discover that Solomon has delivered a peeping bug through Sophie's mother. So, the witch throws the peeping bug at Calcifer and starts smoking a cigar. All of a sudden, the town is bombed by enemy aircraft and Solomon's henchmen attack the house. Sophie runs for help and soon Howl arrives, apologizing to her for his late arrival. Howl then heads out to protect the town from the second round of bombing. Sophie stops him as she can't afford to lose him, but Howl tells her that he wants to keep her protected and leaves. While Howl is out protecting the town, Sophie changes the house's location and goes back to Howl's moving castle. From there, she discovers from afar that her town is under destruction and that Howl is in trouble. So, Sophie evacuates the castle, taking Calcifer along with her. As the castle was being powered by Calcifer, removing him from the castle results in the whole castle falling into pieces. Later, they get back inside and Sophie asks Calcifer to move the castle again. So, Calcifer eats up Sophie's hair to gain strength and assembles the castle back in shape, moving it towards Howl. The former witch realizes that Calcifer has Howl's heart. In desperation to take Howl's heart forever, she grabs the fire demon, setting herself on fire. Afraid that the witch might set herself on fire, Sophie almost immediately pours water onto her, not realizing that Calcifer will die. With Calcifer doused, the castle splits into two pieces with Sophie falling down in a pit after getting separated from everyone except Heen. Sophie mourns over her mistake of dousing Calcifer and fears that she must have killed Howl too. All of a sudden, her charmed ring starts emitting rays, guiding Sophie to enter into a scene from the past. She sees Howl's childhood, where he's seen catching a falling star, Calcifer, and giving him his heart. Suddenly, Sophie's charmed ring breaks and she's being teleported back to the present. Before leaving, she tells Calcifer and Howl to find her in the future. As Sophie returns to the future, she finds Howl waiting for her. So, she kisses him and asks him to take her to Calcifer. The entire family reunites, and upon seeing that Calcifer is barely alive and burning, Sophie requests the witch to return Howl's heart. She takes the heart and places it back inside Howl. Finally, Howl is revived and Calcifer is freed. During all this, Sophie has returned back to her real age, with just her hair remaining white. Turniphead saves the group from slipping away, so Sophie thanks him by kissing him. Just then, he instantly reverts to human form, and it turns out that he is the lost prince. The witch reveals that only his true love could break the spell, but seeing Sophie with Howl, the prince leaves for home to make the king stop the war and also promises to return. Meanwhile, Solomon is seen secretly watching the group through a crystal ball, and seeing their happy ending, she decides to put an end to the war. Calcifer decides to stay with the group as he misses them so much. The film ends with Howl and Sophie kissing each other while flying in Howl's new moving castle. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like and comment your thoughts down below. If you'd like to stick around, check out these other videos from the channel. And before you leave, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more anime in minutes.